Hi, I'm Gary White for Central Kentucky Television. I'm here with some members of Lebanon who are part of an organization that is working to pass a smoke-free bill through the state of Kentucky. I have with me Lee Guilfoyle, Jane Spraggins, and Dave Weinbrenner. We're going to be talking about House Bill 145, which is currently in committee, but there is hope that it could get out to be voted on this year. This is the fourth year that this bill has been proposed, so there is hope that they can get it out. Lee, can you tell us a little bit about this bill?
Well, I think basically the bill really is creating a smoke-free workplace and smoke-free in public areas. Contrary to a lot of popular belief, it's really not any kind of ban on smoking. It basically just says it protects us against smoking in public areas.
Okay. So you can still smoke in your home or outside, correct?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. Now, there are about 24 states in the United States that currently have a indoor smoke-free law. And the repercussions of that are actually for tourism pretty positive. And we have two members of the Lebanon Tourism Convention Commission here with us. Can you tell us some of the statistics or something that you're hearing from people who come to visit about smoking that occurs indoors here in Lebanon?
Well, I think our office has gotten some feedback from because we do ask people when we have an opportunity to give us a little feedback when they've been here. They very often come from places where it's just a given that if you go into a public place, you're not going to encounter secondhand smoke. And so they tend to be very surprised and a little disappointed. They come here to experience Kentucky. The experience we want them to have is the good food, the good bourbon, and cigarette smoke really does not enhance that. You know, it doesn't give them the experience that they're looking for or that we want them to have.
Right. Now, currently, there are several cities and counties, I believe, in Kentucky that do have smoke-free indoor laws. But you're trying to get this done statewide. What is the importance of having it done statewide?
Well, I think what you could end up with, Gary, is 120 different laws that restrict certain things, and maybe you could go across county lines and it would be different. You could have exemptions for certain things like cigar bars, and so you would put in a box of cigars in your front window and then you're a cigar bar. So the challenge with that is that from a public health standpoint, from a tourism standpoint, I think that it's important to be able to have consistency across the board. And there tends to be, this is kind of bipartisan from a Republican to a Democrat position. Most people are in favor of being in a public environment and feeling safe about that. The other point to this is the workplace protections. I mean, imagine going, if you work in a bar or restaurant, and having to be exposed to secondhand smoke. You know, that's not great. And so, you know, when we're on an airplane today, we would not imagine that there would be smoke, or going to a hospital to see smoking, or a movie theater. So I think this is an extension of that, and it seems to be bipartisan. One of the few things that you could say the Chamber of Commerce and the labor unions agree with, and they do.
Now, I know, Lee, you have some personal information with regards to that as well with secondhand smoke and your family, correct?
Well, you know, I think that, excuse me, Gary, the problem is, you know, I think years ago, my parents, born in the 30s, were the product of a farming community that relied on tobacco production as part of their everyday life, their income. So they were part of that smoking crowd. Well, you know, growing up among smokers, I've obviously suffered the ramifications of that, and both of them have died of smoking-related illnesses. Lost them very young, 58 and 63. So of course it touches me personally. You know, I deal with it every day when I think about, I could have still had them here, we could have still had this, it could have been a non-issue. So thinking about the future of Kentucky, the future of Lebanon, the future of all of us, and how we can change this in the lives of our children, the people around every day, I think it's super important to me.
Now, I know in the past you owned a restaurant bar here in Lebanon. And some people say that this kind of law is very impactful on those type of businesses. What would your feeling be if you could still currently own that business?
Well, frankly, when I owned the restaurant, there was a lot of talk about this, and I wasn't particularly for it. My view at the time was if I owned the establishment, I should set the rules for it. But I've really changed tack on that. Although I didn't think so much about it at the time. I'd come home from being in there all day, and my clothes would smell like smoke. My hair would smell like smoke, and so I'd come in to see my wife and my kids, and they'd smell smoke. Although I wasn't doing the smoking, I was impacted by the smoke from others. A lot of people also say, well, leave it to the individual establishments. Well, that puts you at a competitive disadvantage. If it's not across the board, then it's almost economically unfeasible. Although I even question that. I think people have placed such great value on just being able to go into a place that's where they're not going to come out smelling like an ashtray. And really, if I'm expected to provide clean water, why shouldn't I be expected to provide clean air? And I don't believe that there's really you can say that there's a smoking area, but smoke doesn't stay. Smoke filters over for sure. It doesn't stay in its quarantine.
Right. Now, there's been a survey that was conducted recently that showed that majority of Kentuckians are for some type of law that would prevent smoking indoors. What are you hearing from people in the community?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is a lot of business owners who need to understand and make sure that there are protections, that this isn't going to restrict them in their home or in an open environment on the golf course or other places, and that's not the case. And so this is really about inside public environments and the workplace. You shouldn't have to go to work and be exposed if you're not a smoker to secondhand smoke. The other thing I would say from a business standpoint is productivity in our state is important, and we know that smoking can be devastating for that aspect. The other thing is from health. I mean, in terms of our country and our state, we rank, unfortunately, at the bottom of most of those lists, ahead of maybe Mississippi only. And so one of the ways to change that, I think, is to be able to change the aspect of smoking, especially in public environments in the workplace. That seems pretty simple. And like I mentioned, it seems to have a lot of consensus across party lines.
Now, as we said, it's House Bill 145. This is the fourth year for this bill, hoping to get out of committee. This year there is good thoughts that could potentially actually come up for a vote. So you can contact your legislator and tell them that you want to see this indoor smoke-free law passed. What would you say to encourage people to do that?
Well, I think that number one, something I didn't know is that Kentucky actually leads in, lung cancer. And I think it's a scary statistic that our healthcare costs are rising, and we're losing 1,000 lives a year to this ideal thing that could be bypassed. I mean, it's not just, and again, I think, Kentucky, we feel like that the tobacco is an important asset to our state, but I think what we have to remember is even a bigger asset are the lives of our family, our friends, our children, and the future of what we're offering to tourism, to others that come to this town, and those of us that have invested, even other downtown businesses, Gary, that I've talked to. We all are in support of this. It's simply a smoke-free work environment. It's really not this idea that you can't smoke wherever you want. You just can't smoke in public places. It affects other people. So I think that at the end of this thought, we give our legislators a smoke-free environment in their work every day. We put them in Frankfurt with the idea that they would then carry our values, our ideals, to what we want. And I think it's pretty much, we're putting the pressure on them to make this change just for our own health care.
Great. Again, I've been talking with some members of Lebanon who are in favor of the smoke-free Kentucky bill that is House Bill 145. Contact your senator or your representative. Let them know your feelings on that. And if it comes up for vote, we'll let you know how the results come out. Thank you very much for talking with me.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate your time.
This has been Gary White for Central Kentucky Television.